Welcome to the Daily Word, verse by verse. Grab your Bibles and follow along as we study the third letter of John. Keep in mind, I'm using the Holman Christian Standard Bible. So if you're using a different translation, the read is different, but the message is the same. Now, the third letter of John, written by the Apostle John, in verse 1 he says, "The elder to my dear friend Gaius, I love you in the truth." Now, John, being an old man, the last surviving apostle of the Lord, the term elder represents not only age, but also wisdom and experience. And John, it's a personification of both. This letter is written to a specific person, Gaius, whom he calls his friend. Now, verse 2 says, "Dear friend, I pray that you may prosper in every way and be in good health physically, just as you are spiritually." Now, I want to say a quick note because there are some who teach that this verse is a guaranteed promise. They teach it as one of the promises of God that we're supposed to prosper and be in health. Now, I'm not going to go into that. It's a greeting. It's a kind of a standard greeting at that. If you were writing a letter, dear friend, may you be in health. May you be in prosper and health. May things go well with you. It's the same kind of greeting, and to take this and to, I think, misinterpret it, it's just bad theology. Okay, now there are other scriptures if you wanted to make a case for prosperity and healing. This is just not one of them. Now verse 3 says, "For I was very glad when some of the brothers came and testified to your faithfulness to the truth, how you are walking in the truth. I have no greater joy than this, to hear that my children are walking in the truth." As I said in Second John, one of the greatest fruits to ministry is what it produces in the life of people. And while there are some ministers who will brag about the size of their ministry, they will brag about, I'm on television, I'm on radio. You look at some of the bios on some of the books, he's a man of demand, a conference speaker. John says, here is my greatest joy, that the people of God are walking in the truth. That I often think of John the Baptist, who Jesus said was the greatest prophet of the Old Testament, and he didn't do any miracles. So, and not only did John not do any miracles, but John's ministry was only about 6 months in time, and yet here Jesus said he was the greatest prophet. And the one mark about John that it says that he turned the hearts of the people to God. See, that's what. So the growth of people is the greatest fruit and compliment a minister can have. Verse 6 says, "They have testified to your love in front of the church, and you would do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God, since they set out for the sake of the name, accepted nothing from the pagans. Therefore, we ought to support such men so that we can be co-workers with the truth." Now, in this day, hospitality, and then he's also talking about supporting ministers, which, notice he said the chief reason for supporting ministers is that, notice, they take nothing from the pagans. Or we can say it this way, they take nothing from the world. And so when giving to good ministries, and I want to clarify that, notice he said that they testified to your faithfulness to the truth, meaning there were people who went back to John and said, Gaius and his church. And Gaius, by the way, certainly could have been a pastor or a host to a home church, which was common practice during that day since they didn't have church buildings. But So people would come through, and one of the ways that they would minister to people, that they would bless people, traveling ministers, is that they would come and they would stay at the house of a minister, that they would feed them, they would take care of them for the night or however long they was going to stay. And then when they would leave, they would load them with supplies to get them to their next destination. Now, of course, there are people who didn't do that. So they're testifying they treated us well. And so he says right here that you would do well to send them on their way. And that term, to send them on their way, means just that. It means to minister to them, give to them. And notice he says, in a manner worthy of God. Now, I also say this, that since they set out for the sake of the name, and I'm going to say, there are ministries that I will not support because those ministries are only making those pastors rich. And I don't care about making a pastor or a minister rich. I don't care about making a pastor popular. But notice he says that when you support a good ministry, and you should support good ministry, how can you tell? Well, again, because the truth is taught, and then that truth is bearing fruit in the lives of people. And therefore, he says, verse 8, therefore we ought to support such men so that we can be co-workers with them in the truth. Here's one of the good signs that would turn me off almost immediately when a minister tells me what I'm going to get in terms of financially. In other words, if you give to my ministry, God is going to bless you with a Cadillac, or God is going to multiply your seed. And so the motivation of giving becomes a selfish one. Okay, the motivation of giving is that, what can I get? How much money I'm going to get? Oh, you mean tell me I'm going to get a Bentley? I'm going to get a Rolex watch? I'm going to wear a $5,000 suit? If that's the motivation of giving, again, wrong minister, wrong ministry. But if it's a ministry that's teaching the truth, and then that truth is being sown in the lives of people, then guess what? That is the partnership that I want to be a part of. That I'm giving that, hey, I can be a co-workers with those kinds of ministries. Like if I give to a missionary, what kind of work is the missionary doing? Are they really ministering to people abroad? If I'm give to an evangelist, or souls being saved, if I'm giving to a church, or people being shepherded. So he said we ought to support such men so that we may be co-workers with the truth. Now verse 9 says, I wrote something to the church, but Diotrephes, who loved to have first place among them, does not receive us. Now he kind of turns his attention to probably one of the real reasons what he wrote for, and that is this guy, Diotrephes, who sort of gained prominence in the church, got control of the church. So he says he doesn't receive us. Now just imagine this for a moment. Here is one of the most beloved figures, revered figures, celebrated figures. He walked with Jesus. He's certainly an authority. And yet this guy says, I'm not receiving him. Verse 10, this is why if I come, I will remind him of what he's doing, slandering us with malicious words. Now, this is meaning a reform of a rebuke. Now, John is going to get into his apostolic mode and rebuke this guy. He says, and he's not satisfied with that. He not only refuses to welcome the brothers themselves, but he even stops those who want to do so and expels them from the church. So even if you align yourself with him, if you align yourself with, let's say, John and those who are of the truth, he says he kicks those people out of the church. Verse 11, dear friends, don't imitate what is evil, but what is good. The one who does good is of God. The one who does evil has not seen God. Demetrius had the good testimony from everyone and from the truth itself. And we also testify for him. And you know that our testimony is true. I wanted to read that because notice he says, you know our testimony is true, meaning you know that God has certified us. As compared to Diotrephes, he is an egotistic, authority-driven person who wants to control the church. Now he says, don't imitate that. Now notice this, there are many ministries today, many pastors today that are fake, phony. They are peddling their doctrines. He says, don't imitate what is evil, but what is good. You are not under any obligation to follow bad ministers, evil ministers, ministers who are not abiding in the doctrine of Christ. You are under no obligation to follow them. He says, don't imitate what is evil, but what is good. Verse 13, I have many things to write to you, but I don't want to write to you with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. Peace be with you. The friend sends greetings. Greet the friends by name. So he signs off. And again, one of the things he wanted to do was to come to them. He wanted, the hope was to see them face to face. Whatever reason he couldn't get there at that point, at that time, he wanted to write this letter to them to address this point. Look out for this guy here. And again, don't think of the term ink and paper. The ink was not ink as we know it, but actually sometimes it was sometimes like a charcoal, or sometimes even berries. You know, you can use berry juice, things like that, to write with it. So it wasn't ink as we think of it. And paper was just a dried out plant, oftentimes a papyri plant, dried out, and they would write on it. Very, very corruptible and weak. You know, it wasn't durable in any sense of the word. All right, so that we're done with 3rd John. Next time, the book of Revelations. I'll see you then.